Hello, this is Matt Bergman, and you're listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast, episode 57. I'm here tonight with Jared Schneiderman.
Yo.
And Alexis Schlegel.
Hello, Matthew.
Hey, Alexis.
What's going on?
Just being a bro.
Just throwing out, bro.
Yeah.
So, Alexis, I've heard you've been having some thoughts lately.
Well,
okay, so this is Deep Thoughts by Alexis Schlegel.
yes, let's
Go.
It's a new segment.
It's a new segment.
Yeah, it's a brand new
and
segment.
now Deep Thoughts.
Spanking new.
So, no, I just been. I don't know. I didn't bring it up last week. I think we were talking about it off the podcast, Matt. Like some issues I've been having with neighbors in my neighborhood. For those out there, like the east side of Baltimore County, like 70% of like
East
Section
side?
8 housing is like concentrated on like Dundalk, Essex, Middle River area, like east side of Baltimore County. So needless to say, like a couple of the homes on my block on the row that I live in, not the most responsible people, you know. So I'm like the last couple of years, and it's just been getting worse in my neighborhood. Like I've just been dealing with like a lot of issues. So, and I've been kind of getting to the point where how would a libertarian address these like issues that I'm having with neighbors, i.e. like not taking out the trash and putting out bags of trash and the rats are running wild, to not taking care of their properties, to homes that are just vacant, and it's just really bad. So I'm like, what do? Do you report, or like people dumping in the alleyway, you know?
Wait, like people take a shit in the alleyway?
No, but just
People
not,
shitting?
I think
not
it
a
means
literal
dumping
dump.
trash, dude.
Like dumping trash, like because they don't care, because it's like a bunch of slumlords on my block that they get government funding no matter what,
Right.
you know, to basically be a slumlord.
So there's no incentive for them to
Did you say
improve
incentive?
Incentive.
That's what it
incentive
kind of sounded like. Okay, go ahead.
to improve the property, right?
Right, and there's no incentive.
take
Yeah,
care of it.
exactly. And they don't give a fuck. Like they'll just let.
Fuck.
But seriously,
Give a fuck.
I mean, they seriously don't. I mean, these homes
Yeah.
are in like utter disrespect. Like, probably no one in their right mind should be living in some of these homes. Because I mean, like, I know for a fact the house 2 doors down from me, like, I know they had plumbing issues, like when they still lived there, and now it's been rented out for about 2 years now, and it's in utter disrepair. You know, so I'm like, I couldn't imagine even living in that place. You know,
Right.
so it's kind of like. They don't care. Like, they don't care because they're just getting, like, whatever, $2,000 a month from the government, you know, to basically just rent it out to. So anyways, going a little off top. So I'm like, how do you combat this? Like, so should I really go to the cause of said problem? You know, as a libertarian, should I really go to the government and try to, or should I, like, amongst the neighbors that are responsible, should we start doing things more voluntarily? You know, being that advocate, and like, what can... Like, basically, I've been going back and forth. Like, how can I address this? Because it's clearly a nuisance in the neighborhood. So,
Well, how effective do you think it would be to actually go to the government?
exactly. It's not. It's been going on. It's only been getting worse since I've bought a house there. And it's just been getting worse, you know? So, and it's the same.
And is your like property value also going down because of this?
Oh yeah, definitely. And then the other side of it is like there are like I get along with quite a few of my neighbors. Like I have great relationship with them.
Like how much of it? Because your neighborhood wasn't Section 8 when you first bought the house.
No. I'd say when I moved there, it was like on my block because it's row homes, you know, townhomes. I'd say like 80% on my block were probably homeowners, 20% renters. But in the past couple of years, it's like completely flipped, you know? So it's just like gotten really bad the past couple of years, and it's only getting worse. So basically, like, I've been thinking the past couple of weeks, like, you know, like this is really getting to a breaking point, you know? And I'm getting to that point where, like, what do you do? And a lot of the neighbors, the responsible neighbors in my block are kind of like, this is just getting out of control.
Yeah.
And they're like, we want to go to the government. We've been calling the county. We've been going to, you know, trying to get him out here for XYZ complaint, and nothing's changing. So I'm thinking, like, me in this neighborhood, like, what can I do from a libertarian approach? And I think that's where I think our time and talents need to be focused on, like, how can we create, like, in our communities, like, how can we create more of a voluntary society, you know? Like, basically reaching out to, like, responsible people in your neighborhood, and how can you be, like, the change towards, like, a more voluntary society, you know, in our communities.
Well, I mean, the only thing I could think of is just addressing the problems directly yourself. So, I mean, if people are I mean, if people are leaving trash in the alleyway, I mean, can you approach these people, or are you scared to approach these people?
I mean, at some point, I'm kind of like,
do you know who it is, or
no?
is it just,
That's the thing. I mean, these like they don't come out of their homes. They got their Direct TV and their PlayStations and like their 1,000 channels, and they got their Obama phones, with unlimited data. So they don't care. I never see like I don't even know who's who in some of these homes. Like you see people coming and going.
Yeah,
like I don't know if it's like
there.
a house of ill repute or just a drug house or it's just like I don't know, just a bunch of like I don't know,
family members or something.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. So sometimes I'm like I don't want to like be all up in their business. Like I don't want to come in. It's like it's their property or might be their property. I don't know, but it's clearly a problem.
But are they leaving the trash in like a communal space?
In the alleyway, yeah, which is shared. So yeah, I guess that would be a violation that could be addressed. But like what I'm getting at is basically like even if I would tell them, like they'd be either too stupid to either fix the problem, like go to Home Depot and buy a new trash can, or just
don't give a shit.
Yeah, they don't care, or they want someone else to do it, or they don't have the means to do it. So I don't know. Like I'm thinking, well, maybe as a community, as someone like maybe do think. Like,
what if you spoke to the landlords? Is there any way you could contact the landlords?
Possibly. I mean, that's a way of going about it too. But I also think the thing is like I as an individual can't do this on my own. You know what I mean? Like it's such a mass problem in the community. Whereas like maybe like what I'm getting at is basically. Like I'm just thinking like a ways like within my community how I can like do things, use my time and talent, outside of politics to kind of create like a voluntary society.
Are there any
without
other
you going to the government?
Have you talked to anybody on the street who shares your concern?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like all my neighbors are pretty much like, oh, I've called the government and they haven't done anything.
Well, how many of them?
At least a good 4 or 5. Like my neighbor to the right of me. The other neighbor on the other side, one like multiple. I'd say 4 or 5 have definitely filed complaint, and for years, So
I mean, if it's 4 or 5 of them, what if you all I don't know. What if you say talk to the people, and then if the people didn't do anything as like a last resort, what if you all like went in on some trash cans for people if they really can't afford them? I can't imagine somebody not using them, and you know what I mean. If there's really that many neighbors concerned, if you guys all went in, it wouldn't be that hard of a hit at once.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is basically doing community activism. Like
it seems like that could be a good like last ditch effort after you talk to the people, and if they don't resolve it,
right,
then your last ditch effort would be to buy them trash cans, because I can't imagine if you bought them trash cans, I'm not using them.
Yeah. Well, like that's on the low level. Like right now, like that's my goal. Like that's my plan. But I'm also just thinking like that's like a short term like problem. But in the long term, like there's so many issues where like. Just getting like people to care more, like or just to.
So, are you asking like how can you get the people that are in those Section 8 housings to care?
Kind of, or
to
basically
like bring them into the fold, like into your like, society,
or that, or just doing things like okay. The one other aspect of it is like okay, you might not be able to change the parents because they don't give a fuck, but there's a bunch of kids like in the neighborhood that are like. Where I'm like, man, these kids have no chance. You know what I mean? Where I just see these kids out here and I'm like, dude, these kids have no chance. So what I was like thinking was like, all right, using like resources, talents that we all have as individuals to like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should like, I don't know, create an event and have a bunch of my friends that know how to fix bicycles. Like we could have an event in the community and like fix these kids' bikes, like so they're doing like or like showing them like, hey, hey kid, this is how you fix a bike, because like your mom's just watching a Maury Povich fucking like marathon, like and your dad doesn't give a fuck, like teach his kid like little Johnny like, yo, I could fix my bike, like I'm indestructible as a kid, like just empowering to kind of like break the vicious cycle that is like welfare and Section 8 and like just. You know what I mean? Where we can use like another big thing I love to do every year is like garden. Imagine like empowering your community. Like, hey, like you can rely less on fucking WIC or food stamps if you grow tomatoes in your garden in the summer.
Or why don't you start like a community garden?
Well, that's what I'm thinking too. Like, these are all the things, like, I was thinking, like, I think this is like the next step, like, where we as individuals need to think, like, look, the elections are fucked. Like, there's nothing going to change through the system. So we need to use, like, our talents to try to be, like, the change that we all want to see, you know? Like, work towards a voluntary society. So that's kind of where I'm, like, at. Like, I'm thinking, like, I don't know, like, using talents that we all have, you know? Like, I mean, another thing I was thinking, like, man, like, putting on a punk show, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and have it somewhere where it's like, hey, the community could, like, sit on the outskirts and, like, hey, whatever, check it out from afar. But if you, like, let them in, like, oh, no, if you want to come in, it's, like, cover charge. And, you know, we got someone donated beer and we charge for the beer. And then all that money goes back into the community to do, like, events to like, create more of a voluntary society, you know? Like, community projects to, like, hey, we're gonna buy everybody trash cans on this alleyway.
Yeah,
we're doing this
though.
event.
Like, if you charge for the beer, couldn't you, like, get arrested?
Well, not if it's on private property.
Really?
Yep. As long as we check, like,
as long as it's not on commercial property. Is that
well,
what
yeah,
you mean?
man, that's what I'm thinking.
I mean,
Like, we as
need, like, a
libertarians,
license to sell alcohol.
or if you have it at a bar, like if you have it at like an already established bar in your community, like, just what I'm like, basically what I'm getting at is basically fundraising and doing, like, community, like, activism to, like, work towards that.
Yeah.
That we all, like, a society that we all want to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is if we actually, because, like, words are one thing. You know, you talk to someone about voluntarism, you know, like, you always get that, like, but who will build the roads or who will do, you know?
Yeah.
They can't. But, like, if they can see things, like, actually see it actually taking place in communities and things, like, improving, you know, like,
Yeah, 100%, man. Like,
right?
if you can't. Yeah, I mean, you have to prove to people that they can't just rely on the government to fix all their problems. And so, by taking the initiative to start your own program and recruit people to help you out, yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely make a big difference.
And that's where I'm thinking, like, the liberty movement, or, you know, what's left, like, where, I don't know, like, politics be damned, like, don't get involved, like, do things like that you can actually be, like, you know,
Yeah, it seems like a lot of activism has just become
like, keyboard
just
warriors.
keyboard warriors and
Yeah.
memes. And
Memes.
While I think all those things are still important, there does have to be more of actual direct action.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, starting community projects or, you
But
know, doing, like, gray market kind of stuff, you know,
Yeah.
agorism, that sort of
Right.
thing. I mean, that's where
agorism, yeah.
that's really where
Yeah.
the change is going to happen. I mean, the memes are great for spreading the ideas, but
Yeah.
until the ideas can manifest into actual
The
action,
memes are dank.
the memes are, I mean, the memes are dank. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But
Memes are important.
if they don't manifest into actual action, then
You still got a dank meme.
You still have
I mean,
a
you
dank
still have the
meme,
dank. I mean, I'm not denying the dankness of the memes, dude.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong.
All right.
Don't get me wrong. But
Yo, but my memes are dank.
well, yeah, man. You should. I mean, you should
These
start.
memes are dank.
You should start talking to your neighbors about these ideas and see if anyone is passionate enough or
Yeah.
willing enough to do.
But I
something with
think
you.
I think that's the thing too. I've talked to, like, my neighbors many a times. They knew I ran for office, and, like, it doesn't, like what I'm saying is actions speak louder than words. You know what I mean? Regardless, like, how many times have you, like, talked to someone to, you know, and they just don't get it? Or
Well, no, what I'm saying, like, you need to convince your neighbors
okay.
to help you with, like, these ideas,
right,
like
right.
your community
okay.
ideas.
Yeah. Because I think they would see those actions, you know, just like,
Oh.
like, on Saturday, like, I'm staining my fence, and, like, this old guy that shared, like, he's on the other side of the alleyway. He, like, came over. He's like, "Hey, it's really good I see you out here taking initiative and taking responsibility and you know, really, like, maintaining your property." You know, like, he was just like thrilled, like, someone on his block. So what I'm saying is, like, there's probably many others on my block that if they were just inspired to, you know, or to create a better change, you know,
Yeah.
through volunteerism, they'd be all about it, you know. If
Well,
it
have you
makes
ever
it a
heard
better
of the
community.
broken window theory? Not the broken window fallacy, but the broken window theory. It's basically, like, if you allow, like, let's say you have a neighborhood and you allow, and, like, a window gets broken and you allow it to sit there broken, it creates like a psychological thing where people then care less about their neighborhood, and you start to see more broken windows and more trashiness.
Right.
But if you immediately fix that broken window, that helps to, that helps to stymie any sort of like further disrepair. So I mean, if you are walking around and you see, a bunch of trash in the ground, instead of just being like, oh, some asshole left trash, just pick it up. You know what I mean? I know it's like, it's not your trash and it's not, it shouldn't be your problem, but it is your community. So you do have some responsibility.
Like that would be another thing too. Like imagine, okay, so I see these kids outside that don't give a fuck. They're out there just playing, doing like God knows what. The parents don't care. They're climbing in trees. They're coming onto other people's property.
Wait, they're coming on other people's property?
Literally. Like, I caught these 2 kids jerking off in my tool shed.
Oh, shit.
Whack it off in my tool shed.
You like them St. Boys? I call it whack it off in my shit. No, but, no, like, just, they don't care. Like, the parents don't care. Like, these kids, and they're not bad kids, don't get me wrong, but there's, like, no, like, structure or direction or any, like, I don't know. Like, they're just
right. So maybe if they see you out there doing shit. Like I remember after like the Baltimore riots, there were people that just came out and were just like sweeping the floors. Yeah. Or sweeping the streets rather.
Yeah.
And like it wasn't necessarily their street that they lived on.
Yeah.
Or necessarily like their business that got the windows broken out of. Right. But they were like, if we don't take care of this, number one, who's going to fucking take care of it? Is the government going to come here and sweep this up? No, probably not for like another month. Yeah. So we got to take care of our block,
Right. And I'm thinking like just doing events and like instilling that and like constantly fundraising, like, and it would also create leaders in a community. Like, you know what I mean? Like it would basically where, I don't know, those ideas would just be infectious. And it definitely, people would turn to you, as like, I don't know, like I'm just thinking like, what am I going to do here? Am I going to be that asshole calling the county, calling the cops, calling the fucking, constantly lobbing complaints? Or am I going to be that like, hey, like that's Alex. He does the gardens and like, he like, I don't know, like does trash cleanup like twice a week and he has all the kids doing it and he has contests. Like whatever kid collects the most trash gets an ounce of silver,
it's
like
a pack of cigarettes,
gets a pack of cigarettes, of weed, or a fake ID. Like, hey kid, you picked up the most trash neighborhood. Here's your fake ID. It's like, oh man, like
yeah,
like oh man, crazy. Alex the neighbor hooked it. Like I don't know, but
yeah.
Just like doing things like that, where I don't know, like people would turn to you and as like a
you
positive
just set
change,
example,
like setting that example towards volunteerism, towards just
I think all communities and neighborhoods can benefit from that, even like the wealthier ones.
Right.
I see just as much like division in like regular neighborhoods than you do in those. It's just people take care of their own property, but you don't have. Rarely do you see any like block parties anymore.
No, man. Like we're so disconnected, and that would also like I'm so sick of that shit. Like I love the fact there's so many options. Like you could watch anything at any given time, and you could just like never leave your fucking house. But same token, it's like, man, there's no human interaction,
Yeah, exactly.
It's so it's like, that'd definitely be an offshoot and a benefit. People get to know your neighbors. People get to know, like, start talking more.
Right.
Not like just sitting behind 4 walls in the idiot box,
Yeah. Like when you were talking all about that, it kind of made me think about my neighborhood, because I just moved here in September. And I can remember like shortly after we moved in, like for the first like couple like week or so, just everybody was just coming up, introducing themselves. And it was just a lot of really nice people. And I can remember like one dude kind of came up and was like kind of like feeling us out, asking us like 20 questions. And like it was like one of like the first questions was like, so do you rent or are you buying? You know what I mean? It was basically like right away he was kind of like implying like, oh, renting would suck because of I guess renters don't, of course, usually take as good a care of the property, blah, blah, blah. And there are some renters on the street, and there are a lot of homeowners, and it seemed like he kind of had an attitude towards the renters, And I don't know. There are some people down the street that you know, rent. It's kind of like a flop house almost, you know,
Yeah.
and you'll hear like loud music or like parties on
And
the,
you know
the
what,
porch late at night during the summertime. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, you know, they seem pretty nice overall. It's
Yeah.
really not that bad of a nightmare situation. You know, it's a cool street.
Well, that's like such an like kind of bringing it kind of full circle. Like that guy had like basically a prejudice towards renters, but it shouldn't even be like that, because like say like you own an investment property and you own that property. You know what I mean? Like say you lived in that property and you're like, hey, move to another house and you rent it.
Yeah.
You're gonna have more of a stake because you lived in a neighborhood. You're like, hey, like I don't want my old neighborhood to go to shit. Like I'm gonna check up on my property and I'm gonna be a good landlord and I'm gonna screen my tenants or whatever.
Right.
But you know, after like, you know, the housing bubble collapsed, you had all these properties that were dirt fucking cheap, and you had just people just buying them up just to, because they know like, oh, I could just rent it out through like some government program through like HUD, and they could just be slumlords. So basically, government punishes the responsible and rewards the irresponsible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, so like right off the bat, like
Yeah,
they're asking
government
you, like, do you rent?
subsidizes irresponsibility.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then we wonder how we get so much of it.
So right off the bat, this guy's like, oh, like, no, goddamn renters, like, you know, do you rent or do you gonna own, you know, like, and not realizing like, well, this is what all caused the problem, you know. But anyways, but like, what did you notice after like you first moved in, Matt, like with your neighbors?
Are they still as cool, or was it just like an initial? Oh, it's Matt the neighbor.
Well, I think there was like, you know, people generally, you know, say hi a lot of the time. And, you know, of course, sometimes these people are kind of like in their own zone about their business, you know. But, I mean, for the most part, you know, people are nice in this neighborhood. You know, I just had that one incident I told you about with, you know, my neighbor complaining about our dog shitting on our front yard.
Yeah.
Because their kid was running through it. I thought that was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd say that right there is about the worst of it. You know,
Right.
It's and you know, humans are fallible. You know, not everybody's gonna be perfect. You know, it's like whatever. I mean, it's been a cool neighborhood. You know, I like it a lot. So on your street, when so how many people would you say don't have trash cans?
It's about like the one morning on trash day, like tomorrow's trash day. So I think tonight when I get home, I'll drive down the alley, and like I did it 2 Mondays ago. Like I took pictures, and then in the morning I got up early just to see who like had their like just trash bags out in the alleyway with not in trash cans. And I wrote down all the addresses. So I'm just like basically doing,
Detective work?
yeah, I'm sleuthing.
Like how many
Like, private eye.
Like,
Like-
do you remember approximately how many houses didn't have trash cans?
I'd say easily 10.
10?
So wait,
10.
they are bringing their bags out. They're just
so-
not putting them into trash cans.
Yeah, and like
10
the
out of
rats
how
are just
many?
chewing it. Like basically they're putting out like a buffet for the rats like every fucking, it's like a weekly buffet. Like like come
Yeah.
on, like yeah. And
That's ridiculous.
They just tear right through them. It's like, dude, just go to the fucking hardware store. Hell, the county even gives out like I think free trash cans, and
Yeah,
they
I'm
still
pretty
don't
sure
fucking
they
do it.
do.
But you know, it's crazy. They give out. I got in the mail, like the county sent in the mail, like that you go to the Maryland Fairgrounds and get discounted compost bins and rain barrels, and like the compost bin was like $35, and like the rain barrel was like $50. And at
Like-
first I didn't see it was like I thought it was like from a garden center, like a coupon. I'm like, damn, that's a good deal.
So you said a rain barrel?
Yeah, like the county government, Baltimore County invested in fucking like probably thousands of rain barrels and compost bins.
What is a rain barrel? Just collect the rain?
Yeah, like you can run your like a gutter off into a rain barrel, and then you can use that to water your garden, or
Oh, okay.
you know, like you could put like a soaker hose and like run it through your garden, and then just open it up. So you're collecting water. They try to make it illegal in some, like in
I was
Oregon.
gonna say,
someone was
wasn't that
arrested
illegal
for
somewhere?
Yeah, like it comes up like that you can't collect rainwater that just happens to fall on your own property. Like the fuck. But yeah, so like Baltimore County, like the county commissioner like sent it out, and I guess probably because it's an election year, so he wants to look good. Like, you know, citizens of Baltimore County, I gave you rain barrels and compost bins. But it's like,
Yeah, but how many of those people actually know how to use a compost bin?
yeah, motherfuckers can't even use goddamn trash cans, and they're fucking sending like a coupon like to everybody in Baltimore County. So the printing and like the mailing cost, like
Yeah.
they can't even use fucking trash cans, you know, like, and yet you're promoting compost. They don't even know what composting is.
Yeah, that's
Like-
what I was saying.
Yeah, like what is that? Like a rain barrel? Like what? They don't know. Like it's ridiculous. So like I'd say like 10 on my block don't even used trash cans. So it's just
Out of how many houses?
geez, like well, a couple are abandoned, so probably about 20. Yeah, it's like a couple have been for sale and are just vacant. There's like 2 homes that like the house next to me. The guy died a couple months ago, and like
Wow.
the house is owned, but it's just sitting vacant.
Wait,
Like,
is that the house where the guy was basement was leaking into your basement?
yeah, dude, same
So
guy.
so that guy died.
Same guy. Yeah, he died.
Damn.
Yeah, so that's the thing too. I got like this vacant yard next to me, and I'm like, I don't know. It's just
You
like,
wouldn't
what
even
can I
know
do?
if that house was flooding.
What's that?
I said you wouldn't even know if that house was flooding until it like flooded into your house, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So is the lawn like just overgrown now that no one's been there?
Well, someone's been mowing it, so I think maybe like his sisters are probably maybe paying his like lawn guy that would come. So I think so I'm gonna keep an eye on that. But
So how many houses did you say then?
I'd say like
30 houses?
out of 30 homes, like 8 of them don't have trash cans. So there's just like, dude, just rats running all over it already was like a slight problem, like, but now it's just like this year it's the worst I've ever seen it. Like, it's just insane. Like,
I mean,
my dog is going nuts when I let her out in the backyard.
were you saying the county would give out trash cans?
Oh yeah, I definitely think they do. It's just,
I mean, would you be opposed to like just going to the county and just grabbing them for people?
I wouldn't be, because I would rather, like, if that's the case, yes, I would do it. Like, but I would also want to like maybe raise money to like do other things, like do things through voluntary. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to do it that way if there isn't a way. But maybe if it's something stupid like, well, you have to apply and we only 2 per house. It's like, oh man, I'd have to fill out a bunch of fake, like, I don't know. Who knows?
I mean,
if
at that
it's
point,
a hassle, if it's
at
like,
that point,
if
it
there's-
might be easier to just get donations.
right at that point, who knows? I don't know how
for
much of a
trash cans.
bureaucracy. Like, basically, I'd be like, if it's depends on how easy. If it's
'Cause, I
it's
mean,
if
like,
you got to
really-
jump through bureaucratic bullshit, I wouldn't want to.
I mean, honestly,
Trash cans.
you could go around and you could even like sell this to your other neighbors that have trash cans that would be willing to pitch in.
Right, that's
It's
what
like,
I'm thinking.
look, some people obviously don't care, but let's help. Let's help them. Maybe if they can't afford it, or maybe if they don't care, we'll show them that we do.
Yeah.
And you could even get the trash cans and maybe even like stencil like the address on them for the house that you're giving it to. Maybe that'll have them
because there's so
take
many,
a little
like,
bit more pride in
the
it.
That's a
thing
good
too
idea.
is, like, my neighbor. You met my neighbor John. Like, he's super handy. There's a guy Joe.
Is
like,
he handsy too?
No, but like, there's so many like individuals on my block that have like talents, that if you just reach people individually and like use their time and talent to basically create, I don't know, like, it's just kind of what you were saying, Jared, with like the broken window. Like, if more people pitch in and care, and try to, but if you
just let one little thing go to shit, it just kind of trickles out, it
it
kind
just
of
gets
spreads.
worse,
Yeah.
and that's what's been happening. So it's like, and there's still people out there that care. It's just a matter of like you being that like, kind of like, I don't know, being that change and using, like, I don't know, like, that's what I think, like, where I think we should maybe focus our energies, because it's kind of like in the political sense, like, I don't know, you still had some people, I don't know, I mean, yeah, Ron Paul in 08, 2012, you had some like candidates were like, yeah, we're gonna go, I don't know, just where a lot of our efforts were like working in through the system. I think we'd be better off working doing
in our
things,
communities.
in our communities, and on a local level and an individual level, and at a very like then these like, yeah, let's go protest the Fed, let's go down to DC, and like what's that gonna do? Or let's go to this march, like, okay, cool, like, or let's sign this petition, or they're doing this meeting, we're gonna go door to door, and we're gonna petition our overlords, like, please, like, repeal speed cameras, or or Annapolis is in session again, like, call your legislator down in Annapolis and tell them to vote no on some other shitty bill, like,
Right.
just quit wasting time doing that. Like, just I don't know.
Do more actual action instead of just political action.
Exactly. Like, use your time and talents in, like, to better your community. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. And I was just thinking, like, I've been thinking about this for the past couple of weeks, and just thinking like, what could we do at the lowest level?
Right.
But anyways,
Cool, man. Well, let's move on to some news topics.
Okay.
News
Okay.
topics.
News topics. Yeah. So I'm sure you guys have been hearing a lot about this new transgender law.
No, what's that?
So what should apply to you, dude? Come on. So in North Carolina, they passed a law basically saying that you have to use the bathroom that correlates to your gender from birth. So if you're a man that transitioned into a woman, you still have to use the man's bathroom and vice versa.
How do they enforce said law?
Well, apparently there was some story that Matt, you were telling me before about.
Yeah, there was this video came up onto YouTube earlier this week, and I'm not even sure if anybody knows like what state it was in or like known. But anyway, it appeared on Facebook. It's like this cop is harassing this lesbian in a public bathroom. You know, she's dressed a little butchy, but I mean, you could tell it's at least I mean I could tell it was a girl. It was just a lesbian. You know, it's just a little masculine. Okay.
Yeah.
So was it butchy offensive? I don't know. Okay.
I don't know.
So
Who cares?
at any rate, yeah. So at any rate, the cop like asked her for an ID. Or him, or
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell it was a lesbian,
Right.
And the cop asked the lesbian for an ID, and the lesbian's like, cool. She was like, basically, fuck you. Actually, I don't know if she said fuck you, but I mean, it was essentially
Basically.
what she said. Yeah.
Yeah.
She refused to give the ID, and the cop escorted her out of the restroom. Forced her out
So
of the
was
restroom.
the cop called into the bathroom, or he just happened to be there?
I don't
was
know.
weird.
I don't know if I
Wait,
got that
why
much
would he
of
be?
it.
Wait. So this was in a woman's restroom, right?
Yeah,
It was like a line, like
And it was
kinda
a male cop. It was a
outside.
male cop or a female cop.
male cop.
So then he must have been called in there. I mean, otherwise, why would he be in the girls' bathroom?
Yeah, I think the line was outside.
Oh, the line was outside.
Maybe.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
At any rate,
So, yeah,
it's
I
pretty
mean-
ridiculous.
I mean, my position on this is just number one, who gives a fuck,
Yeah.
and number two, the answer, if we need one, is to just let the establishment or the private establishment decide who they want to allow in their bathrooms.
Yeah.
So if it's a McDonald's and they're like, yeah, we just want male from birth in the male bathroom and vice versa, then implement that and see what happens. You'll probably have people boycotting. You'll probably have, in certain places it might work. Who knows? But I mean, at least
I don't
you
even
can
think
kind
most places would even have a spoken rule about it. I think
Exactly,
things would
that's-
just go on. I think sometimes you might have somebody walk into the restroom where it's like a Pat from SNL situation and you're not sure, but you might think about it for a second. But at the same time, it's you don't tell anybody, but you're just going about your business.
Right. I mean, and people want to say that it's a good law because it'll cut down on like sexual assault or something, but I haven't seen any evidence that transgender people are sexually assaulting anybody.
Yeah.
Any more so than regular people are sexually assaulting other people.
You ever
Yeah.
notice like during election years, there's always like some off the wall like incident that just creates just
Do you have the documents to prove that, man?
I don't know, but it always seems like it's always something ridiculous. There's always like a distractive issue, or like every 2 to 4 years, it's always like some hot button issue that everybody's weighing in. It's like such a distraction,
And the reality is it affects such a small portion
Right.
of the population that it doesn't even matter.
But it fires up the masses, you
Right.
know, over something like, why the fuck do you care?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the same time, I think it's good that we care about it because I mean, I think all of us just think the government should just back off. I think it's good that we care, and I think it's good that we voice an opinion. But yeah, I mean, other shit's going on too, whatever. But I don't know. It's pretty fucked up for the cops to be asking for people's IDs in the fucking restroom.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's a little ridiculous.
Or just have them pull out their wiener.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Barry Donegan, who used to write for Ben Swan, he posted something on his Facebook like, hey, conservative buds, you can have small government or you can have big government that looks at everybody's genitals when they're in the restroom.
Right.
It's so true. It really shouldn't be, the quote unquote conservatives that are behind this, they shouldn't be unless they're, openly in favor of big government.
Right. So, In other news, in Oklahoma, a criminal appeals court ruled that non-consensual oral sex that was committed while the person is passed out from drinking does not count as rape.
Yeah, and on a side note, I had a personal question to ask you. Did you want to go camping with me in Oklahoma?
I think I'm going to pass.
Okay. Alex?
No, I'm good, man.
Shoot.
So,
Sorry.
yeah, I mean, to me, this just shows how the whole concept of, like, at least governmental laws is just completely flawed, because here you have there's some law in the books that has created the crime of rape and defined it in a certain way, that something that seems to be common sense, like, yeah, if you stick your dick in someone's mouth, that's rape. I mean,
What about if somebody passes? What about if somebody passes out?
if you stick it in there and they don't want it in there.
What about if somebody just like passes out and you draw a dick on their face?
Well, that's okay.
Okay.
Do they have their shoes on still?
Do
they have their shoes on still?
Would there be a difference?
Yes.
Okay.
If they've
so
taken their shoes off, then you can't do that.
if they're taking their shoes off, you can't draw a penis on their face.
No, but if they have them on, then yes.
I don't get the logic, dude.
You're not familiar with that
No,
rule?
I'm not familiar with that rule.
Mm. You didn't go to college. That's probably why.
I can't say I've had enough dicks drawn on my face. Believe it or not, I'm pretty sure I did have a dick drawn on my face like at least once, just passed out at a party.
Yeah. No, it happens to everybody.
You know? Really?
It's hilarious.
It's even happened to you, dude?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it
Wow.
did.
How
I
about you, Alex?
I got the whipped cream too.
No,
you ever
never
get
have.
you ever get the shaving cream?
I'm pretty sure. I know I've got other people with it, you know.
Dude,
but
that was the worst, man.
it's kind of one of those things. It's like I half remember. It was probably like in my early 20s, and it's like I'm sure, you know, I used to. I mean, I can tell you this: I've joked around about teabagging people more than anything. Like, you know, like when a friend's spending the night, or you're spending it over a friend's house, I'd just be like, don't go to bed, dude. You're gonna catch a teabag.
I've actually seen a teabag.
I'm pretty sure I've joked around with you about it, Jared.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
But yeah, so. But anyways, back to what I was saying.
Okay.
It just shows you how, like, you know, people think that laws can somehow define morality, but here is a clear example where the law has failed. Because we all, you know, we can all pretty much agree that, you know, putting your dick in someone's mouth when they don't want it is rape. And because it wasn't part of this law, that person is not going to get charged with rape.
Yeah.
Or even sexual assault, I believe.
Yeah, it's basically while somebody's passed out, you know, because from drinking. So the law kind of seems to, or the lack of punishment for this person kind of seems like it's kind of victim blaming. Like,
What was the
well, if you pass
circumstances
out
of-
and you're drunk,
Yeah,
you
that
know.
too.
What was the
Yeah.
circumstances of this case? Like,
Was it like a 17 and a 16?
It was a 17-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl.
right.
And apparently, like, she was super intoxicated at a party, and he offered to give her a ride home, and then
Just jerked off in her mouth.
yeah, essentially.
oh, what? You're like, oh man. Well,
It's fucked up.
yeah. What?
Yeah, but I mean, so he should, you know, that does require some sort of punishment, I would think,
Right.
in a...
Well, yeah, like it sounds like it could have been one of those things where like one of those things. It sounds like it could have been like she was just like really fucking drunk and she doesn't remember anything.
And then she claimed rape after the fact.
Well-
Yeah, but I mean, it's all conjecture. We don't know what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like she just might not know anything. And I didn't read that she actually claimed rape. I just read that she didn't remember. So
Yeah. That's a whole separate issue, though.
yeah,
I mean, this is just the fact that given whatever was quote unquote proven, it still didn't matter because it was she was passed out and it was in her mouth. Like, that just doesn't make any
Yeah, when you
sense.
now that's like that just set a precedence. Okay, like what is okay? Well,
Yeah.
well, no, you cross the line. Now that's definitely rape. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
where do you draw the line?
Right.
Like what?
So, I mean, if they want to somehow fix this, now they have to go and run it through the legislative system and then get it approved by the governor or whatever, however that fucking works. So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of ridiculous. All right, moving on. So in the fight against global warming, Denmark has decided to tax red meat. My guess would be, I didn't read too far into it, but I imagine it's the idea that cows farting hurts the ozone or something to that effect.
Yeah. You know,
which, I mean, there's all sorts of arguments whether against, like, you know, whether meats, like raising meat is worse for the environment than, you know, raising vegetables or growing vegetables, whatever.
It's also just the way, it's also the practices, like industrial farming is like, to do responsible farming is far more expensive based on the fact that, like, the government subsidizes.
Wouldn't this make it even more expensive? But when you tax it, I mean,
it's going to make it
just
more
passing the cost on the consumer. So that already expensive, like, say, you know, grass-fed beef is going to be even more expensive with the tax.
Right.
And who the tax is going to hurt the most is, like, the poorest people in the society. So,
because of subsidized irresponsible farming, the government is subsidizing, like, basically policies like this that, you know, is worse for the consumer, but also thinking like it's better for the environment. But if the government just didn't subsidize industrial farming in the first place, there wouldn't be the pollution. Like, because also it's not just from, like, because the cattle are just, you're bringing in their food, so you're trucking in their, you know, they're not free ranging, like, you're bussing in corn, you're feeding them corn because the corn industry is subsidized.
Right.
Like cows aren't supposed to eat corn. Like, they're supposed to eat grass. Like, you know, so it's all these subsidized industries that have created the problem, you know, and then you're going to have government step in once again and, we're going to save the problem by, like, taxing red meat, you know. It's like, you're the reason why it's so fucking expensive to begin with. Like, so costly, like, to do things the right way,
well,
the responsible way.
You mean why it's so cheap?
That too, yeah.
The
the
reason
crap
why
that,
it's so why it's so prevalent. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be as easy to run these factory farms if they didn't have the subsidized corn.
Oh, exactly. And you wouldn't have, like, every corner wouldn't have, like, a fucking McDonald's and a Wendy's and just this shit, like, massive amounts of shit food.
Yeah,
because it would be more of, like, so basically, if the free market would basically, like, because if you wanted, like, grass-fed beef, you're going to be paying, like a little bit more than just, like, just eating this, like, subsidized beef at, like, McDonald's.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, like, if it wasn't as subsidized, you'd have less of a difference in price between the grass-fed
and
exactly the factory farm.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. Prices would come down on, like, the farmers that are more sustainable, doing things more ecological.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyways,
it seems like the Denmark and the Danish people just, like, are just so used to getting taxed, they probably don't even blink at this shit.
Right? They're like, I mean,
according to our Danish friend Henrik, there's basically a tax on everything. Yeah. So, anyone else got anything else to say on that? Nope. Okay.
That's all I got to say about that.
So Bernie back on his campaign staff, you know, probably because he's realizing doesn't have much of a chance anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. They said they're cutting back his campaign staff. I heard on the radio, I guess, but just based on, I think he only won lost 4 out of the last 5 primaries.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I'm sure the Bernie supporters are still thinking it's going to happen.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, the whole thing is so rigged. I mean, this whole super delegate, like, there's delegates and then there's super delegates. Like,
dude, it's not that hard to understand.
No? How? Okay, so break it down.
No, essentially, it's like, how did the super delegates get their magical powers?
I don't know, man.
You know, because it's not through democracy.
Do they wear capes?
I don't know.
Do they, like, fly into the convention and just
who appoints the super delegates?
Can we delegates transform like Voltron and become a super delegate?
Yeah, can you evolve into a super delegate?
How does that happen?
Exactly. Does the stork bring them?
What came first, the
All right,
delegate or the
this
super delegate?
is regressing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, anyways, yeah. But also on Bernie matters, he recently came out saying that he supports the kill list, and actually a while back he was on record as saying that he would continue the drone bombing program.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's going on with this peace candidate that people seem to be touting?
You know, it's funny because he's a little less hawkish than Hillary, but it's really just a little. You know,
Yeah.
it's nothing too traumatic, but it kind of seems like it might be leaking for some people now, which is cool. You know, hopefully more people will wake up to that, because I mean, you know, honestly, like I think it's like the worst.
The worst aspect.
Yeah, like I mean, actually, I posted a post on Facebook a couple days ago, and maybe I'll read it here.
I think it was. I think I saw that.
It
It was
sparked
a
up some
repost.
conversation.
What's that?
Now, well, I told you. I believe I told you what Barry. I told you one thing that Barry Donegan said, but Barry Donegan said something else too that was pretty cool about this. But yeah, let me find it here.
Yeah. But yeah, it seems like the Bernie supporters are always like silent on this issue, or they'll try to. Because the way he said it was like, well, I want to be very clear that I'm only want to drone bomb certain specific targets, and it's like that's exactly what Obama was saying. I mean, he's not, according to him, he's not just going around just bombing everybody. But the problem is to acquire these targets. There's the whole issue with like metadata from phones that they're targeting, or just like the fact of collateral damage.
The fact we're like operating, like basically we're operating in countries where we're like at like quasi war with.
Okay, so
like it's illegal.
Okay, so like I found that post I was telling you about earlier this week. So I wrote, while I acknowledge Bernie has some cool going on with his opposition to the prison industrial complex and the drug war, there were two main points stopping me from, quote, feeling the burn. Firstly, the man is economically retarded. But being as how we have a system with checks and balances and a president, not a dictator, I would have been able to look past his economics if not for my second point. Bernie is a hawk. While he's a little bit better than Hillary with the warmongering, he's not much better. Bernie has consistently voted to up the military's budget. He's defended the president's kill list and drone bombings. Drone bombings which have been proven to kill 90% innocents. Call me a nitpicker, but murder is probably my number one hot button issue.
No, is this what you said? Or
Yeah,
what?
this is what I said earlier in the week.
Oh,
And,
that's cool, man.
It's funny though, but the whole point of the thing was like, he's endorsing like the most horrible thing that goes on, and both the parties are pretty much in agreement on it. The war machine, and it's funny, but like what actually sparked in a debate in those comments, which my whole point is murder. But what was sparked in a debate was the whole where I said he's economically retarded.
Yeah,
it's basically, and then I've got somebody who's not arguing like how he isn't economically retarded. He's just like, well, it's another one of those like, Bernie's a democratic socialist. He's not a socialist. He's a democratic socialist. As if it's some difference. You just add democracy in, and you've got a tyranny of the majority.
Just going off of what he said, I mean, his talk about how breadlines are good.
It's the socialism.
He's
I feel
complaining about like having options.
Socialism's just anti-economics.
Yeah,
it's like they're really, I don't know. I feel like it's just doomed to fail. It's just not going to serve as well as voluntary interaction between consenting adults. And markets to figure out what people need and to judge
Determine
supply
prices.
and demand. Yeah, determine prices based on supply and demand.
Yeah, but no one wanted to argue your point about how he's a hawk.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
Totally just, yeah.
That's funny. I mean, it just seems like we kind of have our priorities mixed up in that scenario. I mean, economics is important. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I'm kind of in agreement with I believe it was Walter Block, who was saying the war machine affects everything. It affects economics. It affects, foreign policy. It affects,
which is really like a Rothbard
security.
point, which is like a Rothbard point that Rothbard introduced to Walter Block,
right.
And then Walter Block said he came to agree with.
Although I don't necessarily think that his support of Trump is justified, but that's another issue. But,
well, it's not even. It's like he's supporting Trump in the Republican primary. It's really that's the only time.
He's like, wasn't he? He's like whoever do less harm.
Yeah.
And foreign policy, like a hawk.
I mean, from what Trump has been saying, he is probably the least hawkish person running. That isn't like Gary Johnson.
Yeah, but like exactly. As far as out of the people who could win.
Yeah.
But
that's what he's saying, though. The problem is we don't know what's going to happen if he gets elected. That's my qualm with even tossing your support behind the guy. Is just like,
exactly. I don't claim to trust the guy. Yeah, exactly. But I wouldn't necessarily trust the guy to do what he's going to say.
Yeah, basically, like Trump's going to come in and is going to be like, "Hey, all you neocons, you're fired. Like, I'm the new warmonger."
The one thing that's interesting about it is
you're fired.
The one thing that's interesting about it, well, Trump is he's kind of appearing to be pretty non-interventionist. He's talking to people that are, Republicans who seem to be usually in your face more interventionist. And so, but he's still winning amongst this group. So that's pretty cool, even though he's coming off pretty non-interventionist.
Wait, who?
Trump.
Yeah.
Trump's coming off pretty non-interventionist,
right.
And he's still winning. He's winning within this group that is usually interventionist.
That is pretty cool. And maybe it's because like people are. It's because the party before Trump was hijacked by neocons, and so people tend to just fall in line with the party. And so when the party was pushing war, they're like, "Yeah, war." But now that Trump's coming out, and they're sick and tired of the neocons, and he's like sort of this refreshing voice.
So, which brings to mind the question for me, who is worse, a Trump supporter or a neocon?
A neocon?
I would agree.
Yeah, neocon.
Yeah, I mean, well, speaking of like Trump supporters, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of problems with anti-Trump supporters.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a thing I was showing everybody earlier where, and obviously, this is an isolated story, and there's always bad apples, blah 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 blah. But apparently, a anti-Trump protester pepper sprayed a Hispanic child who was supporting Trump, along with
like the family,
with like 2 or 3 other people. And it's just it's funny because the left wants to paint Trump as this just like Hitlerian figure, and his supporters as just like neo-Nazis. But the reality is, there's a diverse group of people that do support Trump. I mean, there are some people that kind of latch on to his more xenophobic sounding things and get with that, and then there are people who look at him and say like, well, here's a guy with the foreign policy issue, and then there's here's a guy who isn't going to tax us as much as Bernie Sanders is going to tax us, so whoever's going to steal the least money from me gets my vote.
He's a businessman. He'll probably fix things. He'll look at things from a business owner.
I mean, there's a million reasons to support Trump, and they're not all good reasons, but to paint everybody with this broad brush of like, they're just a bunch of racist lunatics is just, I mean, it's unfair. And I'm not painting, all Bernie supporters a certain way either, but, it's funny to see that you're seeing more news about anti-Trump supporters, anti-Trump protesters doing horrible shit.
I saw this video I don't know. I stumbled across it in my news feed, and this guy, it was clearly somewhere out in California. I forget it. Look it up. This guy basically did he kind of does probably man on the street type stuff.
Yeah.
And basically he just did a social experiment where he posed in traffic or out in public as a Trump supporter, with a sign and a T-shirt, just kind of. And then he did the same thing with Bernie, and everybody's like, "Oh, Bernie, yeah, feel the burn, whatever." But there wasn't any anti-Bernie. You know what I mean? It was kind of whatever, or if it was just "Oh man, you're voting for Bernie? Come on, man, check out his economics." And then he would do the same thing for Trump, and people yo, why aren't you feeling the burn? Like they would get like, yo, why are you voting for that motherfucker? He wants to build a wall. Like they would get angry to like violent, almost violent, and like literally violent. Just one dude wanted to hit him with his skateboard,
Right.
and like it's like, well, wow, like, you know, like you're trying to paint him as this, but it's like, yet your supporters are the ones that are bringing the ruckus, are initiating the violence.
Seems, you know, I mean, the left is not, and I mean, okay, once again, I'm kind of painting with a broad brush here, but there's a portion of the left that they're not peaceful people.
No, they're not.
They're not
tolerant.
advocating peace, and I mean, it goes hand in hand with the idea of, you know, using government violence to solve problems. But it's like they don't have a problem with like violent revolution. They don't have a problem with anybody they disagree with just, you know, using violence against them or like trying to silence them.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, to compare them to like libertarians, like we may feel strongly about something, but we're going to go, at least most of us are going to go, and we're going to debate you. We're going to have a conversation about it.
Well, like
we're not going to use violence.
I was actually talking to a dude the other day, and you know, he would describe himself as a left libertarian.
Yeah.
And you know, he's one of the people they're going to talk about, you know, basically wage slavery and stuff. And you know, I don't agree with wage slavery at all, like the concept. I think it really downplays actual slavery, you know.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense, you know. If it's consensual, you know, it's not slavery, you know.
Right.
But at any rate, you know, it was like I was just telling him, you know, like I don't condone violence, and it's like he's saying, well, I do condone violence if somebody's being like basically a greedy capitalist. You know, if somebody has a business that's like hiring people, it's basically, you know, they're like slaves, and it's like, why? I mean, you can leave, you can go work somebody else, you can go work somplace else, you know, you can work for somebody else,
or start your own business.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of feel like, you know, I was talking to him the other day, and then like I kind of got pulled away, and I had to do something else, and you know, I was kind of thinking I should have just brought up, you know, like if me and my buddy over here, you know, want to, you know, like if I've got like, you know, say I've got a job to get done. Say I'm gonna cut a huge lawn and make a bunch of money. I've got a lawn business, you know. Yeah. And say, you know, I've got the truck, I've got the lawnmowers, you know, and there's this dude down the street. He's like younger, you know. He doesn't have a job, blah blah blah. So, you know, if I offer him an opportunity to come work with me, I mean, he's not bringing the capital. He shouldn't be a partner. Yeah, you know, I mean, I've got the truck, you know, I've got all the bullshit business license, or even if you don't have a business license, you know, I mean, it's kind of like if two people agree on it, you know, why would you tell that dude that he can't work for me to earn money?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous.
You know, I mean,
well, these are the people that think that like property is theft.
Yeah, and it's like basically it's basically, yeah, it's like I'm talking to this guy, and it's like. I don't know. I mean, you know, I think the dude's cool, but I'm just kind of thinking like, I mean, he's just sounding like he doesn't think anybody should work because people get too stressed out when they work, and it's like, well, if nobody works, like, how would anything ever get done? You know? Yeah. It's basically like, you know, magic,
man. You just magically make food appear, and it magically floats in your mouth, and you magically digest it. And
yeah, I mean,
no work is done.
I mean, it's just thinking of a society where nobody has a job. I mean,
someday we might have a society where we don't have to work as much because everything's automated and there's robots doing shit. Yeah. But we have to get there.
I'd say we're kind of there now, because when you think about all the things that are made with machines, you know, we are there right now to a point. You know.
Yeah, I mean that's why we don't have like the same conditions that happened in the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, it's not because government stepped in and stopped it. It's because we developed the technology to where we don't need to have people like working in factories as much.
Yeah, like, you know, like OSHA was created in 1976, but like back in the Industrial Revolution, like companies were already like, whoa, workplace like incidents and safety issues and deaths are like ridiculous. We need to create an environment. So like the trend line for like work related deaths were like already going down before the creation of OSHA. But like any big status would be like, well, since the creation of OSHA, like look at all these. Well, no, it was already coming down. Because people didn't want to refuse to work in like certain conditions, you know? Right. So companies had to adapt. Like the market had to basically adapt and like evolve.
Right.
But
so yeah, I mean, it could be in the future that we don't have to work very much at all. But we're just not at that point, and we're not going to get to that point if we just follow this ridiculous idea that like things are just going to get done without anybody like putting in any work. It's just I think it just. I mean, I don't know this person, but it just sounds like they're probably just lazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we all work. I mean, we don't all necessarily like to work, but we do it because we know it needs to get done.
Yeah. I mean, you want to make a better life for yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And
it's just the reality of the world. There's scarcity.
There are definitely incentives to working.
Yeah.
Right.
I like money. I wish I had more money.
Yep. Got to get that cash money, son. Dollar bill, y'all. Cream.
Yeah.
So that's everything we got on the list.
Cool. So
anything else?
I guess that's just about it for this week then. And until next time, live free.
Statism's footprint is the blood that is shed, drenching the flags on the tax bombs in red. Poisoned by a few at the expense of the many. Sold to the gods and the death machine. You can't justify killing by economic gain. For God, country, and democracy, you can put freedom at gunpoint in a foreign land. You support the troops, then bring them home. I believe that you will do the best for you. And I believe that we have the power, have the power. I hate the state, and I know I'm a slave. We can make a break the power, break the power. Society owes individuals nothing more than non-interference with natural rights. Once a virtuous person fully comprehends the non-aggression principle, the violence of the state becomes obsolete.